In this video, we're going to be looking at the professions in New World, also known as trade skills. We're going to start off with the basic stuff, but by the end of this will be an intermediate level where you'll have all the tools and the knowledge that you need to really get started on your crafting journey. So crafting all starts off at the campfire where you begin the game. Here the game will do a good job showing you how to make some of the basic crafting tools. You will need to use the provided campfire because I don't think you get access to making your own up until level 5 after a quest. But now let's have a look at all of the professions in game. If you press K and then click trade skills, you will to see them all, and they are split into 3 categories: gathering, refining and crafting. There are 5 gathering professions and each one has a required tool that you will need. They're all pretty self-explanatory. Obviously you'll need a mining pick for mining, a skinning knife for skinning, etc. You'll make a basic version of most of these gathering tools at that starting campfire. You'll do this getting flint from the stones on the ground and wood from the bushes. You don't need tools to get started. You actually just need to go and get the flint and the wood, and then you build some of the tools. There's only so much you can build at a campfire. Yes, you can build the basic tools and you can make some basic rations. For most of the good quality stuff, you're going to need a crafting station, but we'll talk about them later on. Gathering is actually relatively simple. The tool that you use determines the speed at which you gather. The better the tool you have, the quicker you will get it, and that's obviously going to speed you up in game. As far as I know, you don't need a better tool to get the higher quality materials. It's just going to take you much longer if you don't have those tools. The gathering professions are mining, logging, fishing, harvesting, and tracking and skinning. Mining is obviously going to be for your metals, logging is going to be for wood, harvesting are your plants and stuff like linen, tracking and skinning is obviously getting your leather and your rawhide, and fishing is going to give you fish. You will level up a gathering skill by using that skill, so if you're a miner, then the more you mine, the more XP you get in that trade skill. You also get leveling XP from gathering, which is quite nice to have. For mining, for example, as long as you have a pickaxe, you can go ahead and start mining iron right away. But for silver, you're going to need to hit level 10 in mining, and so on and so on. And that's the same for all the gathering skills. The more you level that gathering skill, the higher and better quality materials you can get. But there'll always be one that you can start off with. Now, when you level in gathering, you're going to actually be able to track whatever it is that you're gathering. So for example, mining, when you hit level 25 mining, you'll be able to track iron. And this will show in the compass at the top, not on the map. To try and find locations of things like iron and maybe hemp, then I do recommend some online resources. There's 2 versions of the New World map that I've found so far. I'll leave a link to both in the description. It's worth mentioning that there is no limit on how many professions or trade skills you can level up. If you're dedicated enough and you're crazy enough, then you can actually try and level every single one. It's probably worth it at the start to level up whichever ones you need for whatever thing you're trying to craft. But in the end game, I suspect people are going to select just a couple because it's going to be easier to maintain and be good at them. And if you need some resources from a different gathering profession that you don't have, then you can just go on the trading post and buy it. But obviously you will be wanting to sell your wares to fund that activity. Okay, so now you've got your raw materials, you can't just pick those raw materials and make something from that, and that's where the refining comes in. This is basically the middle step before you can craft the good stuff. So if you were mining iron, well, you would now take that iron and smelt it into iron ingots. You turn the wood into timber via woodworking. Leatherworking turns your rawhide into leather. Weaving will turn your fibers into cloth, and stone cutting will take your rare gems and prepare them for jewel crafting mostly. So now we've got our materials to craft, we can now do the good stuff, which is making weapons and stuff like that. So let's talk about that. Weaponsmithing will make pretty much all of the strength-based weapons as well as shields. Armor smithing will make most armor from light, medium and heavy. Engineering will make the gathering tools as well as dexterity-based weapons like the bow, musket and hatchet. Jewel crafting makes jewelry that gives you stats that you wear. Arcana makes potions and magic weapons. Cooking obviously makes food, but it also makes dyes for your armor. And one of the more interesting ones is furnishing, which lets you make items that will decorate people's houses. So now we'll look at the stations a little bit more in detail. Crafting stations will have tiers, and these will get upgraded by whoever owns the settlement. Now we won't talk too much about who owns territory and stuff like that for this video, but just know that the higher tier station you have gives you more options to craft. So for the top end stuff, If you have a fully built station, you'll be able to make everything, whereas if you don't, you won't be able to make those top end things. So if we go to a station, you'll notice a couple of things. In the top right, you'll see what professions use that station, and on the screen you'll also see what tier the station is, and on the left you'll basically see a list of your crafting recipes, and there's a little icon that shows you what trade skill is needed to make that. Now, one thing to note here is that actually just being red instead of white means you don't have all of the requirements needed, and that could be the tier of the station, or it might be that you don't have the raw materials. In the bottom right is that it will show you how much XP you will get by making just one of the things that you have selected. If you craft multiple by dragging the slider and creating multiple, you will get that value multiplied by the number of times you are making whatever you are making. So let's look at maybe making some medium armor. This is obviously mainly made out of leather. Making armor is done at the outfitting station, and the number next to the profession icon shows you what level your trade skill needs to be to make that item. Once you are that level and you have the materials, then you can go ahead and make it. So for these medium pants that I want to make, I need linen, leather and iron. Linen is from fibers gathered from hemp, turned into linen at the loom. Iron we spoke about briefly. That's going to take some iron ore, and I'm going to smelt it at the smelting station and turn it into iron ingots. And the leather you get from rawhide, which you get from skinning animals and turning into leather at the tannery. One thing to note is the storage shed. Right now I don't have any rawhide in my inventory, but I am in a town with a storage shed. And in that storage shed, I actually have some rawhide. I can craft at the crafting stations and use the stuff that's in the storage shed rather than needing it to be in my inventory. But keep in mind that the crafted items will then appear in your inventory. So let's quickly turn that rawhide into leather, and then we'll go back to the outfitting station. So okay, so now we have all the stuff. We've got the linen, the leather and the iron. So there's two special things to know on armor, and that is the perks and the attribute. So on this musket, for example, you can see that it has some stats, but it also has a perk that increases threat. If you add a special item during the crafting, this will let you determine a specific perk. You get these rare items from collecting in the world, etc. There's no one source for these. But you can also add Azoth, which gives you a better chance at getting perks and also gem slots. The higher level your trading skill, the better gear you will make with a higher gear score, and the better gear will have better stats and a higher chance to get perks. But you will also need that higher tier station for the top end stuff. Hopefully that explains it enough for you to get started on your journey, and you can take this video and now become the crafting god that I always believed you could be. Or goddess. Have a most beautiful day. Goodbye.